Things grow. Something's alive, it's growing. Something is not growing, it's not alive. All living things grow. Every person that's growing spiritually, that's alive spiritually, is growing spiritually. And if you're not growing, you're dying because you can't tread water very long. How about you? Are you growing? Where do you stand in terms of your spiritual growth right now, today? Well, to help you answer that question, we began this series a couple weeks ago called What It Takes to Grow. And we're looking at the 5 things that are important to help you grow. So we began this series 2 weeks ago. We said the first thing, and like the rest of this series is not in a strict chronological order, but the first thing is that if you want to grow, the first thing is it takes the right response to grow. It takes the right response to grow. If you don't respond right to Jesus Christ, you can't be in relationship with him. And John 15:5, Jesus said, apart from me, you can do nothing. So and nothing in Greek means zero. See, it's cool how that works. So you have to respond rightly to Jesus. And Jesus used the parable of the sower and the seed. And I think it ought to be called better the parable of the soil, because that's what really changes in the story. And the only right response to Jesus is to be some people say the second, third soil are okay. I don't believe that. It's only the fourth soil, and that's this. It's only the fourth soil that is the fertile soil. It represents a responsive heart, a heart that's open to Jesus Christ. And then if you have the right response to grow, Jesus promises that you'll grow, because he says if you have the right response and you're the right soil, you'll have 30, you'll have 60, you'll have 100-fold. So that tells you you're going to grow. The second thing it takes to grow is it takes the right relationships to grow. So it's not just me and Jesus and all this kind of isolationism. You need the right relationships to grow. Remember what we said because I know you've been thinking about it all week. I know it's all you've been thinking about. It's not only the right relationships, but also the right context for the right relationships. Remember that? Yes. Okay. You remember that. You just don't remember that you remember that. Yeah, you got to have the right context. It's like you can have a plant that has the sun, it has the rain, it has the soil, right? But if it doesn't have it in the right measure, it's doomed, right? Put a plant in I still don't know, a terrarium or some close thing, and there's too much sun. Well, it needs sun, but if it gets too much, it's not in the right context. It's got to be out of the terrarium. Same thing with you. You have to have the right context for the right relationships to grow. We tendered the idea that it's community, care, and change lives. You have to have a relationship in which there's community, common, care to and from each other, and change lives through the study of the Bible. And we think small groups do that. By the way, a great story about community is 2 porcupines. You know, because people go relationships. You know, they're when they're good, they're great, but man, they're painful. Because how many know relationships can be painful? Like if you've been married more than 7 years, you give a testimony, right? I could have you come right up here. So you could, and except me, because I'm married to Sue. So she could give a testimony. I just couldn't. Anyway, even though she's on vacation, I possibly could, but she could see this video, so I wouldn't. So anyway, but there's no reason to, so that's why I couldn't. But there's a story of 2 porcupines, you know, and then they get cold at night, porcupines, and they get next to each other. But as porcupines, as I understand it, that porcupines, as they get close to each other, their quills begin to pop up. And then when they pop up, they separate. But then they get cold and they come together. And then one person said, oh, I get it. You know, porcupines, they need each other, but they needle each other. And that's how a lot of relationships are. We need each other, but we needle each other. But that's the second way, you know, no matter what, it's the second way to go. The third thing that it takes to grow is it takes the right church to grow. That's what I'm going to talk about today. When it comes to the church, people have lots of opinions. How many know that people's opinions of the church are decidedly negative? Right? Would you agree with that? Well, you wouldn't agree with that, right? You'd agree with my postulation that it is, but you wouldn't personally agree with it. And they say things like the church is irrelevant, boring, judgmental, always after my money, unfriendly and cliquey to guests. Oh, they're friendly with themselves, but when it comes to guests, unfriendly and cliquey. Lousy kids programs filled with hypocrites, etc., etc. And when Lakeshore began, my wife and I did somewhere between 300 and 500 home surveys. We went to somewhere between 300 and 500 homes, and we knocked on the doors or rang the doorbell and said, "Hi, my name is Vince DiPaola. I'm the pastor of Lakeshore Community Church, a new church we're in the process of starting, and I wonder if I get your opinion on 5 things." Now, I haven't said that in 23 years, and I have it still memorized because I said it 300 to 500 times. So we asked people, and we said, "Hey, why don't you go to church?" Guess what the number one reason why people didn't go to church? At least what they told me. Too busy. Too busy is number one reason. Now, what does too busy really mean? Not important enough. So people go to church because it's not important enough. Because, like, I'll give you an example. Like, let's say you're really, really busy, and, then your house is on fire, and the fireman goes, "Hey, your 5 children are in there." I go, "Yeah, I'll be there in a minute. I'm really busy with something." That'd be silly, wouldn't it? You'd go in and you'd get your kids. Because too busy means not important enough. Now, here's the... One more of those, and it's pepperoni for everybody. That's just how it works here. You twice, and you're buying pizza. You're going to fund Group Link. We're going to bill you. So that's how we work here. We're filled with grace and truth unless the phone goes off. Then we're into law. That's how we work. So when people say, "I'm too busy for church," what they're really saying is it's not important enough. And when they say it's not important enough, that's on them. But here's what's on the church. The church has got to be meaningful enough. And if the church is meaningful enough to enough people, if it's meaningful enough, then maybe they'll say, "Well, it's a little more important than I thought." And then maybe they won't say, "I'm too busy." Maybe they'll say, "I'm free." You see? 2 great stories from the survey. I thought they were funny, and the first service did. I just want you to know. The first service. So the first one was, so I knock on the door, "Hi," and I go, "I wonder if I can get your opinion on 5 things. And the lady looks at me and she goes, the moment she opened the door, laser beams were grooved in me. And she says, "I'm against organized religion." Now, what would you say to that? I said, "Oh, wow, that's awesome. You would love our church. We're totally unorganized." That's what I said. She didn't flinch. Titanium steel glance and laser beams. So I walked away and I said, "Have a good day." And as I turned around, here's what I thought. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. Here's another one. So did the same thing, knocked, and then, so this is the evolution of this first question. The first question I said, are you involved in a church? Or do you attend a church? And everybody said yes. So I said, I better make it stricter. I go, are you involved in a local church here in this community? And everybody said yes. So then I said, are you actively involved in a church right here in this community? So I asked one guy, and he was so happy. He was awesome. He goes, "Yes, I am." So then I got smart, and I said, I can't add any more adjectives to this question. So I said this. I go, can you tell me the name of it? He was so polite. He held the door, but he goes, "Just a second." "Hey, honey, what's the name of that church we're actively involved in?" That's what he said. That's what he said. It was so funny. I'm like, wow. Most people just don't see the church as a place to grow anything except mold. And that's too bad. Whether it's a bad perception, bad experience, bad mouth from other people, locker room talk or whatever, or something else. These people have never been part of a church that does what it should be doing at its best. And that's what Hebrews 10:24-25 tells us. That the church should be the place where people look forward to attending at least weekly, and psychopathically come back beyond once a week and be a Jesus freak. Now, a little background is, I think I mentioned this last week, so excuse my redundancy, but the early church was populated very, very early on by many Jewish people. Made sense, right? Jesus was Jewish. 12 disciples were Jewish. Jewish people were most open to the true God. So that would happen. And of course, it promulgated to other people. But the Jewish Christians were suffering for their faith, as all Christians were in the first two centuries of the church, first 200 years of the church. And, they were fed to lions for sport. They were tortured and killed. Nero started a fire in Rome, blamed it on Christians so he could persecute more Christians and get people to stop paying attention to his horrific governance and leadership. And the unknown author of Hebrews writes his letter to keep these Jewish Christians, hence the name Hebrews, Jewish, keep these Jewish Christians from going back. Because what they were saying is they were going, look, when we were doing the Old Testament plan, we weren't getting harassed. It was like peace on earth. We started following Jesus, it started getting tough. Now, we don't know anything about that in America yet. But it's not tough here. It's not. You get mocked out a little bit, you're going to cry, suck your thumb. That's all you get. It's hard. So they said, let's just go back to Old Testament Christianity. The author of Hebrews says, don't do it. Don't give up on New Testament Christianity, because Jesus in the New Testament is way better than everything in the Old Testament. We did Hebrews at Common Ground midweek. I hope you'll be here this Thursday for music night, and next Thursday when we start our series on the kingdom of God. I hope you'll be here for that. We did the whole book of Hebrews, and there's 6 exhortations mixed in with Jesus is better than the priesthood, Jesus is better than Moses, Jesus is better than the angels, etc. And here's one of his 6 exhortations, verses 24 to 25. Let us consider how we may spur one another toward love and good deeds. What's spur one another toward love and good deeds? What's another way to say that? Spiritual growth. Let's spur each other toward growth. And then he says this, let us not give up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing. Can I paraphrase that for America? Let us not give up meeting together as most people regularly and often do. That's how we'd say it in America. But let us encourage one another, and all the more as you see the D, capital D, day approaching. That's not a typo. That's a reference to the Lord's return. By the way, we don't know who the author of Hebrews is, but we know he was a vegetarian because he talked a lot about lettuce. So the church ought to be the place where you go to regularly go because you want to, not because you have to. Now, why do you want to? The text says 2 things: to be spurred on to love and good works. Don't we need a lot more love today? Oh my gosh. Can't we all just get along? I wish President Trump would be a lot more careful what he said, and I wish people would stop hating him so bad. It's both sides. Right? Can't we all get along? To be spurred on to love each other, to spurred on to love people who don't know God yet, and to love God more. And then to do good works, to serve each other. Oh. And the second reason why you'd want to go to church is to be encouraged to live for Jesus, to be encouraged. Church ought to be a place of encouragement. Doesn't mean you don't hear some tough things. Doesn't mean you don't hear some challenging things. But at the end of the day, you hear the tough things, you hear the challenging things, and then you're encouraged to be a better person, a better whatever. Sue and I have been part of 6 churches in Rochester, South Florida, Central Florida, North Texas / Dallas. And we weren't part of 6 churches because we church hop. We just lived in different cities. And here's what we found. Some churches had better ministry than others. There's a surprise. Here's another thing we found. Some churches helped us grow a lot. Some churches didn't. Here's another thing we found. Some churches were so awesome, so cool, I could invite my friends to. Other churches, like if my friend had a spark and I brought him to my church, snuffed out. It would have been snuffed out. Couldn't do it. Did not have a church I could do. Why is that? The answer is this. The best churches are committed to everything calls them to be. Not just what's convenient, not just what's comfortable, not what's cool, not what's hip, not what you want, not, well, this is what I believe. I listen to these people. I believe the church ought to be this. And I go, what about that? No, I believe it ought to be. You don't get to pick what the church is, friends. You don't get to pick. God told us. It's not hard. It's not hard. But churches, they so segment, and it frustrates me. You have to be committed to everything Jesus says. Not some things. 99% obedience falls 1% short. We need more Christians in the church and better Christians. We need quantity and quality. You don't get to pick. I don't get to pick. Now, how does that work? How the right churches help us grow is this. The best churches are the ones that are committed to 5 things. Listen, if you want to know if a church is a great church, it's committed to 5 things. They prioritize them, they pursue them, they practice them. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The best churches do it. So here's the thing. I want to talk about what these 5 things are, because they're the framework for all that a good church does. They're the 5 essentials for the right church. And if you are looking for, if you're here, say you're visiting, you're new here, and you're looking, I'd like to find the right church, maybe this is it. Here's the thing, there are neutral things about the church. There's no Christian beat, right? Or Christian instrumentation. You may like or not like our music. That's up to you. Those are all opinion things, and I'm not here to talk about that. But if you're looking for a church, whether it's this one or somewhere else, you should look for all 5 of these things. Not 3 or 4, 5. And here's what you look for. The first is this. The right church helps us grow because it helps us experience amazing grace. Christian word for that's evangelism. Look at Luke 14:23. Go out into the country, Jesus says, and urge anyone you find to come in so that my house will be full. Urge people. Urge people, not, urge people. And God wants his house full. We've got a lot of people here this morning, but guess what? There's some seats there. There's some seats here. It's got to be full. A right, healthy church is all about reaching out to people who aren't yet Christian and not yet in the church and invite them to come. It shares the good news of Jesus Christ regularly, and guess what? It expects people to believe. A lot of churches go, I'll visit, sometimes I'll go visit a struggling church, and they start apologizing to me. Who am I? I'm nobody. They start apologizing to me. It's been a struggle, and here's the thing, do you expect anybody to become a Christian at your church? Because you know what? God generally does what we expect them to do. Here's the thing. I expect God to use our church to help people become Christians, and it happens. It's called faith. Expectancy is a kind of faith. With that focus, a church plans for people who are already attending. That's most of you. You know who else it plans for? People who aren't here. And here's what makes Lakeshore somewhat unique. I'd love to believe every church thinks this. I know for a fact they don't. We strive, we're not perfect at it, we strive to care just as much about you as we do for the person who's not yet here. See, because you know what most pastors do because they're afraid? They placate you all. If you do that, you bring that instrument in, you do that, you bring in lights. When we bring in lights, you think, I'm going to become the Antichrist. It's just, you can't believe it. But we're not just doing it for you. We're doing it for the person who isn't here yet. Because if you know Jesus, you're going to heaven. But I already told you a couple weeks ago, Jesus said most people aren't. And I want to depopulate hell. So, the right church will always have new people showing up. Could be the unchurched, the de-churched, the bad churched, that just moved to Rochester. Because we're not the transfer church. I can tell you the transfer churches. I'll tell you who they are. I'm not going to say it because I don't want it. We're just not into that. We're not getting masses of Christians from other churches. We'll let the other ones do that. I know what we're about. We're called to reach people who aren't. And all our surveys show that when you walk in that door, 50 to 55% of you were not Christians the first time you came here. And I think that's pretty cool. The national average is less than 10. And the number one way people get here is not Google AdWords. We're trying that, by the way. Not websites, not mailers. We do all that stuff. We're going to do all that stuff. Not even big guests. You know why we have big guests and special days? To get you to invite. Because the number one way is inviting people. That's how most of you got here. Somebody said, hey, Lakeshore, Lakeshore, Lakeshore. And you go, okay, you go. You're, okay, you go. Okay. You? Okay. Maybe. All right, I'll think on it. And then they come despite us. The right church is always sharing the amazing grace of God. Second thing, it helps us enjoy spiritual growth. The Christian word for that is discipleship. Now, Peter says in 2 Peter 3:18, says, grow in the grace and knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ. I take it that the grace is becoming a Christian and knowledge is developing as a Christian. Of course, you need grace all the way through. Of course, you need knowledge to believe. You need both. But grace and knowledge seems to be grow in the grace, that is how you became a Christian, keep growing in that, and grow in the knowledge, keep learning more and more about your faith. Because once people grow numerically in the church, we have to build in them spiritually. I believe it's criminal, it's spiritual malfeasance, spiritual malpractice to help someone become a Christian and not offer them classes or things to grow. It's criminal. The Greek word for discipleship is mathetes. It simply means pupil, student, learner. That's why spiritual growth is not exclusively, but it is primarily, it starts with applied knowledge. Knowledge with a plan to do something with it. So we help people grow in their faith. Good churches help new Christians grow in their faith, helps veteran Christians grow in their faith. Because there's 4 stages of people. I think of it this way. First is exploring Christ people. That's people that come to our church and go like, I have no idea why I'm here. I don't know if I believe in anything. I'm just here. So they're exploring people. The second is what I would call embracing Christ. These are people that are just on the edge of accepting Christ. They believed in Jesus maybe from their past religious tradition, predominantly Roman Catholic in this community, but then they never heard the good news, and so they're on the fence, they're real close, or they're brand new. That's the second kind of person, the embracing Christ. Then the third is engaging Christ, and these are people that have made a decision, and they're starting to put in Christian practices, and the Christianity that they believe is starting to integrate in their life. But then there's one more. And that's that everything is Christ person. Everything is, they wake up in the morning and everything is Jesus. Everything is Jesus. He's not a segment of my life, he's everything. I make decisions informed by him. I do everything to please him. I strive to. Not that I accomplish it, but I strive to. And that's everything, Christians. And here's the thing. We try to minister to exploring, embracing, engaging, and everything, Christians. You know how hard that is? You don't want to know why churches don't do all 5? Because it is hard. You get spread so thin. But you don't get a choice. I don't get a choice. And I love it. Because when you get spread thin, then God has to show up. And when he shows up, it's so awesome. Because I can't do this and you can't do this, but Christ can. And he does all the time. And the right church has opportunities for all 4 groups. All 4 groups. Here's the third. And by the way, New Horizons is one of the best ways. And next Sunday night, I hope you will take New Horizons 101 if it's kind of new to you. We're going to teach you what Christianity believes, how you become a Christian, and the vision and values of this church next Sunday night, 3 to 7:30. And I teach the class simply because I'm not looking for more stuff to do, but because I teach the class because I want you to hear straight from me what the church is about. So you can get to know, usually you got to get to know the senior pastor, like it or not. There's the third thing, is it helps us engage in small groups, and that's fellowship. In Acts 2:42 and 46, this is a subset of what we covered somewhat last week. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes, ate together with glad and sincere hearts. And so I just want to be brief on this point, but we're all designed for relationship. But we need each other, but we needle each other. We all need relationship. There's something about the faith where when the Lord's up there and the Bible's over there, you need somebody right here, a human being right here to show you the way. How many know that's true? You can't just go, if you want to get good at golf, just do this. No, you got to get up to them and say, get a little waggle. You got to bring it back straight. You got to have somebody show you. And it's the same thing with the faith. Sundays are a starting point, but they're not an ending point. And of course, the greatest relationships involve community, care, and changed lives, as I mentioned earlier. And today is a real exciting day. I mean, Pastor Corey's excited for two things today. Pastor Corey, our discipleship pastor, he's excited because this week he started shaving. It's awesome. He started shaving this week. It's awesome. Yeah. Peach fuzz is over. Bust out the race. So he's very excited about this. We're going to buy him a kit, get freaking Dollar Shave Club or whatever. We're going to get it mailed to his house. Second thing he's excited about is Group Link, which is taking place from 1 to 3 today. And it's a chance for you. You know why he's excited? Because the first time in the history of our church, guess how many groups we're offering you? Not 10, not 20, not 30. 40. 40. 40 groups. Think we should give him a raise next year? All right, we'll do it. He's awesome. Pastor Corey's the best. I'm going to get killed for the razor joke, but he's the best. One last thing about this. The bigger we get, the smaller we get. You know what I mean by that? That means the more people we have on Sunday, we're going to stay personal. And you know how we're going to stay personal? Small groups. The right church offers opportunity to grow in groups. Grace, growth, groups. The fourth is it helps us exercise our unique gifts. Christian word for that, ministry. 1 Corinthians 12, those verses there. God's given us many kind of special abilities. You know that? You all have special abilities. Even if you're not yet a Christian, you don't have spiritual gifts, but you have natural gifts that are special abilities. And there are different kinds of service to God. All you together form the one body of Christ, and each of you is what? Two things. A separate and necessary part. A separate, you're very unique and necessary. Just like an orchestra. You need the cello, you need the violin, you need the other orchestra things. And then when you get the orchestra things, and I have been to the RPO, I do appreciate culture like that. Not more than once a year, though. But I mean, I have gone there. And here's the thing. The first three things we talked about, grace, growth, and groups, that's what the church does for you. The fourth G is what you do back, and that's you use your gifts back. You go, how does that help me grow? Here's what I know. And by the way, I'm thinking about doing this series because, you know, the creative team, they want everything 17 years in advance. They want my whole message outline and everything 17 years. And so, just kidding, by the way. But anyway, so I'm planning a series. I think I'm going to go with it where I'm leading up. We're going to look at the life of the statements of Christ on how he turns everything upside down. You know, like if you want to be the greatest, you got to be the least. And so I was thinking about that. And here's the principle of Christianity that I think governs it all. And it's this. The way to receive is to give. That's how Christianity works. That's why people who are generous are happy. That's why people who are tight are miserable. What's the heart of miserable? Miser. And so what happens when you have these gifts that God gave you, you use your gifts. And you know what happens? You find joy in it. You find joy in loving other people and serving other people. Sadly, most Christians do not even know their spiritual gifts. And the church doesn't help. Most churches don't even have a spiritual gift class. They don't. I find that to be very sad and unfortunate. At the end of the day, if you are a Christian, you are responsible for finding your gifts. But at the end of the day, the church is responsible to help you find them and then use them. More on this later in the series. But most don't. At New Horizons Trail, we teach you that. And the fourth way that a right church helps you grow, it helps you use your gifts. So grace, growth, groups, gifts. The fifth and final way a church helps you grow, it helps you embrace giving yourself or giving of ourselves to God, which is worship. This is an interesting verse. It says in John 4:23-24, it says, the Father seeks worshipers, and those that worship the Father must worship him in spirit and in truth. And I get the sense that they must worship him spiritually. And in truth, they must worship him by having an objective, accurate knowledge of God. So in the spirit and in truth has to do with true spiritual commitment, and truth meaning an accurate view of God as you express this worship. It's the only time in the Bible that it says God seeks anything from a human being. Did you know that? God doesn't seek money. He seeks worship. You know why? Because if you worship him, everything else takes care of itself. By the way, what's worship? To make God number one. Worth. To make him the most worthwhile person in your life. The right church offers not only a service to worship God, but also skills to worship God. Because, by the way, worship is not a service. You go like, whew, like I worshiped. Whew, now I can unworship. Yep, I'm going to unworship all week, and then for an hour and 15, I'm going to worship, but then I'm done with that. Whew, now I can unworship. Oh, that's not how it works. Worship is not a service. It's a life. It's a life. By the way, you know how you know if you worship God? Here's the 3T test. Oh, I worship God. Cool. Then that means God has your time. He starts weaving in your schedule. He starts taking over. He has your talent, and he has your treasure. So I want to talk about treasure a little bit later, but briefly I want to say this. Here it is, mid-September. I'd like you to do this, even if you don't do it literally. Go and look at your checkbook, credit card, whatever, any place you do transactions. Look at them all. And then if somebody objectively came and looked at it, what would they say you valued? I'll tell you what a lot value your boat. You value golf, value your home. Here's a question, like would any objective person look at your giving and say, this cat values Jesus Christ? Because that's like the proof. Because you can say, I love Jesus, love Jesus, love Jesus, can't have my money. Okay, well, that's kind of a different kind of love. So now that I've convicted you, but the right church helps us give ourselves to God. Everything, not just our money. Money is the easiest thing to give, by the way. Unfortunately, it's not true in the church, but it should be. Now, we use this spiritual growth funnel, and I want to show you, because this is really the paradigm for growth at Lakeshore right here, this whole thing. We developed it a bunch of years ago, and we made it look nicer now. But how do the 5 Gs fit in? Grace. Where's grace? It's right here. It's helping people discover. Remember, what's our mission? Helping people discover and develop a growing relationship with Christ. So there's grace. Where's growth? Right there. Remember we said growth is applied learning? There's growth. It's at all 3 of these. Where's groups? Right there. Where's gifts? Right there. Where's giving to God? Everything. Worship is giving everything. That's this whole process. So that's how that fits into the spiritual growth funnel. By the way, we have it at Get Connected now so you can see it. And if you go to Get Connected, we'll help you. Pastor Corey and the team will help you. We'll come up with a little plan for your life, and you can have one of these cards. It'd be awesome. When a church helps you find the 5 Gs, listen to me. I don't care if it's here, because you may say, yeah, this church has the 5 Gs, but it's just not for me. And that's okay. I'm just telling you, whatever church you find, make sure it has the 5 Gs. Because if it does, man, you got it. Boom, you got it. A lady came up to me and she goes, you know, these messages I kind of go, oh, they're like cough syrup messages. You're just going to have to listen to it. You know, you're going to swallow. And 2 people came up to me and they go, this meant more to me than you'll ever know. Guys, like I just moved to the area. Another lady said, I'm thinking about leaving my church because it just doesn't seem to do the right things. And maybe that's for you. You know why it has to be off? Because then it's balanced, then it's complete, and then it fulfills the purposes that God has for the church. And my desire is that we be a 5G church. Like don't phones have like 3G network or LG network or what? How does that work? 4G? Okay, good. You know more about phones than you do lawns. Last week you were bad on lawns. Bad on lawns. Yeah, so we want to have the strongest signal, and the strongest signal is a 5G church. Okay? And my desire is that Lakeshore would be that. And for the last 3 years, you can see the 5Gs working, because now we're back to where we had been. We had a few years where it was just challenging, and God was pruning me, pruning our church, so that we'd be better. The last 3 years, we've grown 7 to 8% the last few years, and this year we're on a nice growth trajectory. Once you find the right church, you should commit yourself to help it grow. Because there comes a time when you stop asking, gaga, Google, baby Christians, go, well, what are you going to do for me? You know what mature Christians do? They go, now that I know what you're, because it is the right first question, what are you going to do for me? But then a mature Christian quickly goes, now, where can I do something back for you? See, gaga, Google diaper people, they sit around and, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. But mature people, they go, now that I know you're doing all this for me, how do I give back? And so I want to tell you how you give back. If this is the church that you love, you should do all that you can to help it. And I want to share 4 ways. Some of the stuff you hear every year. Every year. But some of the stuff you haven't even heard yet. And I know what we're trying to do. I have no idea how it's going to happen. And I'll be like Indiana Jones. I'll let you know when we get there. You know, we'll make it up as we go along. Here's the first. We keep pursuing God's mission passionately. Our mission is simple. For 22 and a half years, to help people discover and develop a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. A few years ago, we modified and tweaked our vision to make it more friendly. Here's our vision statement. Help people discover and develop a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. That's it. You know what that is? That's all 5 G's are in that, by the way. All 5 G's are in that. So will you actively help us pursue the vision and mission of this church? Will you do it? How do you do it? Let me give you 3 ways. Number 1, by inviting everyone you can to church. I already said it's the number 1 way. And some of you are here at Lakeshore because you were invited. And in fact, I know this for a fact because I know all the data. If we said, everybody get a Connect card. In fact, I am going to have everybody get a Connect card and answer 2 questions in a minute. But if we had everybody get a Connect card and say, what's the number 1 reason why you came? You know what? You'd get some mailers. You'd get some this. You know what the number 1? Friend or family. I know it. I know it for a fact. Every week, it's friend or family. We have somebody that's been coming to our church from Brazil. Brazil! And they moved to Rochester. You know how they came? We have another member family that are Brazilian, and they met on Brazilian Facebook. Didn't know there was such a thing. And that's pretty cool. So you came in and you got a packet, and here's the first of 3 things. Right here are invite cards. And here's what I want to ask you to do. I want to ask you to carry them on your person and invite people to church. If you were here last year, you have this wonderful Lakeshore friend invite card holder. Ooh, ah. And so I carry it with me. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this to encourage you. I've given out at least 100 of these. Most of the time, I get the eye roll. But they're nice because they want a tip. Okay, they want a nice tip, and I'm a good tipper. So, but the week before Easter, we went out for dinner. And I went to our server, and I said, hey, I don't know if church, in my standard line, I don't know if church is your thing, but here you go. And she goes, I'll be there for Easter. And she was. Haven't seen her since, but she was here on Easter. The second thing is you have a brochure. And this is for you to check out, but guess what? You can give this, if somebody wants to know more, give it to them. We have plenty of them. Get them at the Welcome Center, but there's 2 tools, and here's what I want to say, invite. Second, by serving our local community in love. This year we started something, because here's the honest truth. The honest truth is we can't do any more than what we're doing until God says you have to. And God spoke to Pastor Brian. I came back from my July break. I want to meet with you. I was like, oh boy. Okay, sure, Pastor Brian. So we meet, and he goes, I feel like God wants me to lead this thing called Serve Initiative. And I go, well, that's pretty cool because I've been wanting to see that happen. And you know what it is? Every single month we do something for our community. No strings attached. We don't ask for anything. Nothing. We just want to love on you. And man, I got to tell you, the things we do are incredible. Can I tell you, you know what we did this month? You want me to wreck you a little bit? So this month, our Serve Initiative was to help Westridge Elementary School. You know how the public school is about the church? You know how the church is about the public school system? So we're helping them. This is the plan. We're going to help them. And you want to talk about what God does when when he's blessing something that you're doing. So we get this random call a couple weeks ago, random call. And this shoe store goes like, we have to get rid of these shoes. We just have to. Could you know any place that could use them? And we go, think we do. And we give them to the children at Westridge Elementary School. Some of these kids have crappy shoes. Some of these kids don't have sneakers and they can't take gym classes. And not only did we give them snacks, we gave them shoes. These kids got shoes. And I'm telling you, we think Greece is a nice suburb, and I live in a nice suburb. I have a nice house, blessed more than I deserve. But here's the thing, there's a lot of poor people in Greece too. And here's what happened. We gave them the shoes. The principal's ecstatic. The children can't believe it. Our people did it, and they felt blessed. And the name of God was honored. Was honored by everybody who saw this. And that only happens when you get out of your comfort zone and just serve somebody. And you're not supposed to cry as much in the second service. It's a rule in the pastor's book. You only cry in the first service on this. And I hope you will be involved in the Serve Initiative or the Feed My Starving Children event in November. Here's the third, by supporting our needy world. And our world is so hurting. It's so hurting. And because of time, I have to be brief. And all I want to say is the third thing we've given you is this brochure. And this is how we help our needy world. There's only two ways you give at Lakeshore. We don't believe in this designated giving. It's just a designated giving church is a divided church. We only believe in two kinds of giving, like to our general budget and to Making Waves. And here's what we do for Making Waves. It's an effort, and what's the purpose of it? It's Habakkuk 2:14 right there. The earth is, it says, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. That's what we want. And how do we accomplish that? We pray, we serve, and we give. And so what I want to ask you to do is read this brochure. And I'm telling you the end of the game at the beginning. Here's what it is. Here's the thing. Read it. Like, I know that's illegal for Christians to do. Like, read printed material they receive at church. There's something in the back of the Bible that says you don't do that. I ask you to do that. It's cost a lot of money, a lot of effort. I ask you to read it. And here's the goal. That you would prayerfully consider tearing off this tab and giving an upfront gift and making a monthly pledge so that we can impact our world. And here's the thing, like, I don't want to be Mr., Danny Downer here, but let me just tell you the truth. You so encourage me, but can I tell you something that's disappointing about our whole body? Every single year for the past few years, we do this. And guess what percentage of our church gives to it? 35 to 40%. So here's my challenge. How do you go from 35 to 40 every year and go to 100? I don't know, but I'm throwing down right now. And here's the thing. I will give you $13. Okay? I will. Everybody who doesn't have money, I'll give you $13, and you turn this in, and I want you to make a $1 upfront gift and a $1 monthly gift. If you can't do that, let me know, and I'll help you. This should be 100%. And you go, why'd you put the little boy's face on there? You just want to tug at our hearts, right? Right. It's exactly what I want to do. I ain't playing with you. Tugging at your heart. Because this is not Photoshop. That's real dirt. This is a real human being that needs Jesus Christ. So you got to figure out if that matters or your golf game, that's important. Cool. All right, figure it out. Here's all I'm going to say. At the end of the day, I hope you'll do it. Second, I need to be a little more brisk. We begin resolving our space crunch practically. Now, just be brief here. We are not there yet, but we are starting to experience a space crunch over here in our children's ministry. It's not bad, but when we have the second service, bigger services, you know what ends up happening? Like, it gets a little crowded in there. And you know what happens? when it gets a little crowded, we start breaking fire codes. We're not breaking fire codes. We will not break fire codes. We have short-term solutions, but we got to have a long-term solution. It also impacts our student ministry down the hall. This whole wing is the children's and student wing. We have to do something about it. I thought I had the answer until I got the quote this week. But here's the thing. I don't know how we're going to solve it, but we have to solve it. Would you agree? Like, do children deserve to have the greatest environment in the world? That's why we spent thousands rebranding it. Yeah, they deserve it. Children are not generation of the future. Put your hand on their pulse. They're alive. They're the generation of the present. They have to be built into. So 2 things are going to happen. I don't know how. Number 1, something's going to have to get built again. It's just the way it is. Number 2, something's going to have to get repurposed. You know what I mean? Like the purpose that we use it for now is going to have to be changed to another purpose. And here's the thing. It's going to take money we don't have. You say, well, where's the money? You got it. And I got it. All I want to say is we have to start thinking about it now, because next year, if we keep growing this way, we've got to have a solution. And you pay me to think further and clearer than anybody else, got to have the solution. Third, we consider adding a service strategically, adding a third service. So I was planning to come here and tell you about one exclusive way. Now I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. I don't know when. I'll tell you when it's going to happen, October. Because September, you all are still going to Bills games. I don't know why. You still think it's nice. You don't come to church. Then October, you come back in full force. Although it's a nice crowd here. But that's when it's going to happen. But here's the thing. It's going to happen one of 2 ways. The first way, I thought, is we're going to add a third service. And it still might. And I'll tell you what the service time is. It'd probably be Sunday right around 5 p.m. Because we want to give another opportunity for people to come to church. And you can like it or not like it, but Sunday morning is not reserved for church anymore. We're post-Christian. Forget about that. You've got to give people a third opportunity. The second is, I actually have a pastor friend here, and you never know what's going to happen. We started to explore it, and we'll see what happens. But another possibility is to start a multi-site on the east side of town. Somewhere away from here so we can expand our impact. And I don't know which way it's going to go. But here's the thing. We got to give people another opportunity to come to Christ and to hear the good news. I don't know what God's going to do. I'll let you know when he tells us. But we're going to do something. So here's what I want you to do. I want everybody, please, to get a Connect card, please. And I want to ask you 2 questions. The answers are yes, no, or maybe. That's all. And all I want you to write is, first question. If we have a Sunday service at 5 p.m., would you be open to coming to it? And all I want is yes, no, or maybe. Second question. If we have a Sunday service at 5 p.m., do you think somebody you know would be open to it? Yes, no, maybe. So in other words, on the back of your Connect card, please, and then drop it in. Please, I'm asking everybody, please, please, please. You could say yes, no, 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 maybe, maybe, no, maybe. In other words, you should have 2 words there. First, 5 p.m. Sunday, would you possibly be here? And then second, somebody you know. One last thing as I wrap up, and that's this. We increase praying and giving generously. That's what's ahead. That's what's next at Lakeshore. The reason why we're growing is prayer. But I'm telling you, it takes money to run a church like this. This stuff doesn't just poof appear. Payroll comes every 2 weeks, ready or not. Last year at this time, if you give to our church, you're going to get a giving statement. If you don't, you can get an envelope number. By the way, if you want to get weekly emails, fill out the Connect card and say, I want emails weekly, and give us your email, and we'll gladly add you to the list. But when I was writing my note for the contribution letter this week, I went in last year's. Last year, at this time, we were down $16,000. Because we're always kind of down, it seems like. This year, we're down $62,000. Never seen anything like this. Our church is growing, and our finances are flat as a board. So, understand, because when people come to a church, We have a saying at elders and trustee and staff meetings. We always say, the last thing that shows up for a person at the church is their wallet. By the way, you know the first thing that leaves the church? Same thing, the wallet. So I'm not going to go Oral Roberts and say I'm going to die or beg or complain or sulk. I'm just going to let you know. So if you are not yet a Christian, like, don't give anything. Don't. You don't have to. Don't worry about it. If you're a brand new Christian, I just need to let you know the standard. The standard is 10% giving. If you're a veteran Christian, if you aren't giving 10%, I just have to ask you a question. Why not? Like, does God not deserve it? Is this not the right church for you? I mean, you have to figure that out. But we need you. We need veteran Christians more than ever, and newer Christians, because I don't think people who are yet Christians are obligated to give a cent. We want them to receive. So that's it. I'm letting you know. And hey, whatever comes in, the lights are going to be on January 1st now, but we may only have some of them. No, I mean, it is the way it is. I want to end with this thought. Great things are happening at our church. Great things are happening. But listen, greater things have yet to come at Lakeshore Community Church. I believe that. Do you? I do. Let's pray. And for those of you who are here and new and you go, whoa, this is like, woo. Well, this is Vision Sunday. It's a little different. I just want to say this to you, like, all of this begins when you have a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. And here's how it works. You begin to say, the first thing you begin to say is, God, you're so holy. The second thing you say is, I'm sinful, stem to stern. The third thing you say is that I believe the only remedy is Jesus Christ, his death on the cross, his resurrection from the tomb. And then fourth, you say this, Jesus, I believe in you alone. And Jesus, I receive you by faith alone. And if you say that prayer of faith to God, that faith, that means you become a Christian. You're so forgiven. You may not believe it. It may seem too incredible, but you are. Thank you. And let us know about it on that same Connect card. And then, Father, I end with this prayer of Paul in Ephesians 3. Now him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine according to his power that is at work within us, to him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. Amen.